Western societies tend to make agriculture a battle against nature. By converting natural landscapes into farmland, people remove key elements of ecosystems which support wildlife. Additionally, frequent disturbance of the systems through tillage and chemical applications makes surviving in these habitats very difficult for wildlife. While this pattern creates a negative outlook for biodiversity, it also creates what is in many ways the Achilles heel of modern agriculture. For while farming practices usually hurt narrow-ranged and specialist wildlife, they bolster populations of widespread and generalist species that often become pests. By adjusting modern agricultural systems to restore evenness between the vulnerable and generalist organisms, humans might be able to reduce the impact which pests have on yield. While it would require humans to move away from philosophies that turn agriculture into a battle against nature, making farmland more wildlife-friendly could prove an effective way to protect people's livelihoods while also protecting global biodiversity. Pest resistance remains problematic for farmers worldwide. For example, the peach potato aphid has since the 1990s possessed resistance to almost all kinds of insecticides. Because the aphids breed year-round and can also reproduce asexually, a high probability exists that certain organisms will contain genes protecting them from the pesticides. This happens with vertebrate populations as well, like when rodents evolved resistance to anticoagulant poisons by altering a gene used to recycle vitamin K. As with the aphids, the large population sizes of these animals facilitated the spread of pesticide resistance. To reduce pest populations in a sustainable way, farmers can alter their growing practices to make cropland more friendly to wildlife that feed on the pests. In the 1980s, for example, the Indonesian government discontinued the use of 57 insecticides to protect enemies of a common rice pest. Following this act, populations of beneficial organisms rebounded and helped increase rice yields by 12%. But reducing pesticides isn't the only way to protect beneficial wildlife. The existence of natural habitat has also been shown to increase the presence of natural pest enemies. In a study of detrimental rape pollen beetles, for example, researchers found that predators fed on the pests at a rate which increased incrementally as natural habitat increased. In another study from Costa Rica, birds who benefited from natural habitat were observed to reduce an insect's infestation rates by around half. Because undisturbed areas provide natural enemies with breeding sites, alternative prey, and many other things, they can reduce the influence which large pest populations have on crop yield. But many people are still skeptical about making agriculture more wildlife-friendly. One question asked by conservationists is whether or not agriculture can even be wildlife-friendly. After all, some species thrive in environments for the first few years after human-induced change, but then their populations do not persist long-term. But research suggests that many narrow-ranged and specialist species can indeed survive for many generations in human-altered environments. In southwest India, 90% of native birds were seen to survive in both untouched forests and tree nut plantations. Furthermore, some of these species were classified as threatened, demonstrating the ability of properly managed farms to support rare and specialized species. But farmers often remain ambivalent about wildlife-friendly agriculture, because many of them view natural areas as wasted land, which should be used to grow crops. Additionally, they may hesitate to relinquish use of chemicals that have become staples of modern agriculture. However, studies have shown that when natural enemies successfully reduce pest populations, the benefits outweigh the costs. In the Costa Rican coffee study, for example, birds prevented an amount of damage per plantation that was comparable to the yearly salary of an average Costa Rican citizen. So while farmers must expend certain costs to ensure the survival of beneficial organisms, the economic perks can compensate for expenses. But not all attempts to utilize natural enemies are successful. All in all, researchers find no definite correlation between natural area and crop yield. In some cases, the natural lands boost productivity, but at other times they lower it. So, while it sometimes is in farmers' best interests to allow natural habitat to exist near cropland, people should examine the conditions present on their farms before swapping out chemical control agents for natural enemies. Even when habitat does not reduce pest populations by bolstering natural enemies, wildlife-friendly agriculture can still provide many other services to farmers. For example, the process of growing multiple crop species amongst each other, also known as intercropping, has been shown to increase both crop yield and wild organisms which can survive in the systems. Additionally, the presence of natural land near agriculture can slow the evolution of pesticide resistance by letting non-immune organisms survive and compete with the immune ones. So, while increasing natural habitat does not always strengthen natural enemy populations, wildlife-friendly agriculture can still be implemented in many beneficial ways. Due to the avant-garde nature of wildlife-friendly agriculture, many areas of study remain unexplored. For example, not much research has been done in America to assess the ability of wildlife to survive on farms. Additionally, people should explore ways to accurately predict when crop yields will benefit from increasing natural habitat on farmland. If properly implemented, making agriculture more wildlife-friendly can reduce pest populations and also protect biodiversity, offering a way to balance the needs of humankind and the natural world.